In this video I'll show you how I did 69 URANUS, but please don't worry, it went all pretty smoothly. The reason why I chose URANUS, Ophelia and the 69 hours 4 minutes and 20 seconds mark is obvious, but yeah, I missed it by 1 second. After Deadlock Protocol update I'll probably try to do a 300 hour mark. This, in the new difficulties, we'll be able to choose. When you are in a survival mission, people tend to worry about their damage. Having enough damage to kill enemies so you don't stay with 0% life support. While that's the key factor of a survival run, when you do something this long, having enough damage to kill enemies 9999 capped enemies isn't enough for the life support. Doing this in a solo mission will also make the enemies spawn too low. This means you need to have another way to get life support besides life support pads and normal loot. Hydrid, Korra, Necros or Ivara can give you extra loot, and you should pick one of them. And of course the reason why with Ivara this is way more doable is because of her invisibility. She manages life support and survivability with ease. Going for the Ivara build I was using Steel Charge and Coaction Drift, both of them for more melee damage, so my finishers would have more damage as well. The damage that the Steel Charge adds to finishers isn't that big of a deal, but I had no other choice. Corrosive Projection didn't make any difference since the finisher already does true damage. And stuff like Growing Power or Energy Siphon wouldn't benefit me in any way. And even if I was in a scenario the finisher damage doesn't cause true damage, 80% armor removal is nothing. Then we are using Efficiency for the energy drain, Duration for the time spent stealing loot, and Range for the loot range as well. All of that without decreasing her strength so you don't have less than 100% added loot. Also Prime Flow helps when dealing with a lot of energy drain Eximus. For the Arcanes, Arcane Energize to help with energy and Arcane Fury to help with damage. When using all of that and staying 24/7 invisible, you will survive and maintain life support without any trouble. And how will you kill the enemies in this mission? For that you should use the Sleep Arrow ability and open enemies to finishers. Unfortunately every other arrow is useless in a run this long, even the Noise Arrow. Your melee weapon should be chosen and built for a finisher build. Rapiers and hammers have the strongest finisher multiplier of all melee weapons at the moment, but you could also go for dagger with Covert. Covert doesn't make you hit kill enemies anymore, but gives you more finisher damage, which most likely will lead you to hit kill enemies anyway. Going even further, depending on your enemy, I'd say that with a good finisher even any weapon can do this, as long as it is a decent base damage weapon. But let's take a look at the most reliable options we have at the moment. Fragor Prime, Arca Titron and Kuva Shildeg. This is because hammers tend to have a lot more base damage than daggers and rapiers, alongside the fact that they have a lot of finisher multiplier. Arca Titron has more base damage than Fragor Prime, which has more crit than Arca Titron. Doing some tests, we see that the finisher benefits more from the base damage than from the CC, even if the crit is scaled with Blood Rush. That makes Arca Titron a better choice than Fragor Prime. Now let's take a look at Kuva Shildeg. It has even less damage and crit than Fragor Prime. But when we test this, we actually notice that Kuva Shildeg actually does more finisher damage than Fragor Prime and almost more finisher damage than Arca Titron. Kuva Shildeg's red crits are actually better than Arca Triton's orange crits, but Arca Triton orange crits are better than Kuva Shildeg's orange crits, and overall Arca Triton does more damage. The reason why I was using Kuva Shildeg and not Arca Triton is because of this ribbon here. And if you're curious about how can Kuva Shildeg do more damage than Fragor Prime in the finisher, it's simple. It's because of its rank 40. Yes, the rank of a weapon increases your finisher damage, but really I think that any hammer would work in this situation. It's funny because in my run I took a condition overload, but I didn't need to proc effects with my secondary weapon. This means I was basically hit killing enemies with one less mod in the build. But I have now adapted the build and I actually suggest this one. Blood Rush and Organ Shatter for the crit, which will increase your damage, alongside Primary Pressure Point for more base damage, faction damage and finisher damage with Primate Smite and Finishing Touch for a lot more damage as they are actually multiplicative, not additive. A attack speed mod which can't be Berserker because Berserker doesn't decrease the finisher animation. And at last I used Corrosive with Prime Fever Strike and Shocking Touch, but you don't need to worry about the weakness of your enemy. Any damage type will increase the same value of your damage when you're using finisher, but you can also use Conditional Load, Spoil Strike or a Riven if you wish. If you're going for a Riven, damage and finisher damage would be a good option, but a Riven isn't needed in this situation dealing with these enemies in specific. It's true they have a lot of health, they have a lot of damage reduction because of their armor, but the finisher actually does true damage as I said. This means that the armor they have doesn't reduce the damage you cause with the finisher. The only way you'd suffer to deal damage is against enemies that have a form of damage reduction besides armor, like for example Nox. True damage from finishers or slash procs don't bypass those damage reduction effects or auras, they only bypass damage reduction from armor. If you need to deal with a tougher enemy, maybe you should use Condition Overload and a secondary with Viral, Hit and a lot of multi-shot and status chance. But I'd suggest not using Radiation. Radiation procs will turn enemies against each other and you could easily die in this situation. And you should, in this situation, use the Suppress mod so you don't get out of invisibility when you shoot with your secondary weapon. Other thing to notice would be your combo, how you maintain it at 12. You could equip a combo duration mod on your melee weapon, but using Narumon would be a better choice. For the companion, I was using Sahasa Kubro for more energy with the Dig mod. In this situation, I wasn't using the Fetch mod so I could choose when I should get the life support loot. The last point to be made is about the Nightwave enemies. You can easily deal with them with a slam attack, but I wasn't able to do this in this long run. I wasn't causing enough damage in the slam attack, so I decided to use the Artemis bow in the middle of the run and it worked. And I guess that any Artemis bow build will do the trick. So now you already know how I did 69 in Uranus. I was invisible using a hammer and having finishing touch. But I wanna make it clear that this is not worth it by any means. The amount of resource is obviously big, but dividing the amount for the time spent, it's really low. You will get more resources doing 40-minute runs with a decent squad. And the rotation rewards like the relics for example, I stopped receiving them from 50 hours on. See you soon. Cheers.